I've purchased my fair share of retro handhelds at this point, and I gotta say, I think the 351P is still my favorite. Yeah, it's got some weird quirks, like the joystick colors not matching the button colors, and also to use Wi-Fi I have to use that annoying freaking dongle, but I gotta say I really like this device. And that volume wheel thing I complained about during my review, I actually don't mind it anymore. It's weird, I oddly developed a nostalgia for this device, even though it's only been a year. You can hand me a Retroid Pocket 4 Pro or an RGB30, with that beautiful square screen, and honestly, they don't give me the same warm fuzzy feeling that my RG351P gives me. At this point, I've probably lost a bunch of you. Who cares about a 3-year-old device that can barely play Nintendo 64? Well, clearly I do. And honestly, it's not objectively the best handheld. It's just purely because of the fact that this was the first retro handheld that I ever purchased, and I purchased it during a time where I was revisiting retro games for the first time after not have playing them since I was a child, basically. It's ultimately what got me into retro gaming. It's also the reason why I decided to start this YouTube channel, and also the reason why I get to be part of this awesome retro handheld community. Now, clearly there's biasness towards my 351P obsession, but we all have our stories about our first retro handheld. I'm sure you do as well, and honestly, I'd love to hear your story down in the comments. I remember the day my RG351P arrived. I had already watched several setup videos beforehand, and I had everything ready to go. I clearly remember the weather was so nice outside. The house happened to be quiet. I think my wife had taken the kids to their family's house or something like that. I went outside in my backyard, pulled out a chair in a nice shady spot, and booted up Pokemon Emerald. It was the first time I had played Pokemon Emerald in probably 15-ish years. Memory of that game flooded back, and I was put in a state of bliss. The nice breezy weather, the memorable trumpet sounds of one of my favorite GBA games growing up, and an overwhelming feeling of nostalgia. I didn't realize how amazing it would be reliving the past with Pokemon Emerald, and I was hooked. I was hooked to playing every retro game I grew up with, plus the ones I didn't get to play as a kid. I felt reinvigorated in gaming. So that's what started me on this retro handheld collection track. And that finally brings me to the point of this video. Today, I'm talking about my last year of retro gaming, where this channel is taking me, and my plans for the future. So if you're interested in retro gaming, or retro handhelds, or just video games in general, sit back and enjoy. So I'm coming up on my 1 year of making and posting videos on 8-Bit Bongo, and I figured this would be a good time to take a step back and think about where I've come in my retro gaming journey. I've learned a lot about retro handhelds over the last year, and a lot has changed in terms of which devices I like to play based on my retro gaming needs at the moment. Clearly, I have an emotional attachment to the Anbernic 351P, being my first console and all, but I thoroughly enjoyed the other handhelds I purchased since then. My next retro handheld was the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. Upgrading to the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus provided a lot of quality of life improvements that I was missing with my 351P. Internal Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, more powerful emulation, easier and more accessible UI, a more efficient sleep mode, and a micro HDMI out. I didn't care about the micro HDMI out all that much. That is, until I realized that I could convert my Retroid Pocket 3 Plus essentially into a home console, which is just awesome. I've explained how to do this in previous videos, but to summarize, you can connect 4 Bluetooth-based controllers, a Bluetooth speaker, plug your device into a TV, and game with your friends or spouse, which is what I did. Despite how powerful this device was, I ended up playing through Pokemon Crystal first, because why not? Thanks to the HDMI out though, I was able to screen capture everything and make my retro review on Pokemon Crystal. Don't worry, I did play more demanding consoles. For example, my playthrough of SSX3 on the PS2, another great game, and it worked surprisingly well. I played a lot of SSX3. Soon after the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, I bought myself a Miyoo Mini Plus. I wanted a handheld that gave me the most nostalgic feeling, and the Miyoo Mini Plus dropped some serious retro vibes. Plus, it was small and pocketable, but not too small. I was hooked on the Miyoo Mini Plus right away. It's a dope looking console, let's be honest. It also feels super premium in my opinion, which is crazy because it's honestly pretty cheap. I know a lot of you out there prefer the RG35XX, which is the direct competitor for the Miyoo Mini Plus. I haven't played on the RG35XX original or the Plus model, but I actually did recently order a 35XX Plus, so keep an eye out of a video comparing the two. It felt right to play handhelds on the Miyoo Mini, so I ended up playing a lot of Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. After they updated Onion OS, you could also play DS games, which I definitely tested out. Oh, and speaking of Onion OS, how great is that OS? I mean, it's probably my favorite operating system for any handheld ever. There's such a strong community backing it up, and the OS works so well for quick pick up and play gaming. My next handheld was the RGB30, a kind of niche handheld in an already niche group of gamers. But yeah, obviously I purchased the RGB30 for that amazing 1:1 aspect ratio screen. It really makes Game Boy, Game Boy Color, SNES, and NES look amazing. I recently posted my in-depth review on the RGB30. I recommend you check that out. If it wasn't for that square screen, the RGB30 would just be another RK3566 handheld, which I'm sure a lot of us are kind of sick of at this point. But seriously, there is no better way to enjoy Game Boy games at this time, except for maybe the Analog Pocket. And finally, the last handheld I purchased for the first year of 8-Bit Bongo was the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. What can I say? The handheld lives up to the hype. It plays GameCube and PS2 very, very, very well, and it's got a lot of things I loved about the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus on it, just faster, more powerful, and well, better. I actually just posted a video comparing the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus's performance to the 4 Pros, and I will admit there's a big difference. So, sorry Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, you have been dethroned. So after a year of gaming on retro handhelds, what did I learn? Well, for starters, I realized that there isn't a one-size-fits-all. In fact, there isn't even a one-size-fits-me. I mean, all these retro handhelds have different strengths. My first Anbernic RG351P may have been primitive, but for the form factor and plastic feel, it's still my favorite. The Retroid Pockets are more convenient, powerful, and feature-rich than my other handhelds, but they feel too modern in my opinion. I actually remedied some of this by adding Daigisho front end on my Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. When you set this as a default home screen, you bypass the Android UI completely, straight to this nice looking front end, which makes the device feel more like a retro handheld. The Miyoo Mini Plus has the best OS and retro feel to it, but you're limited to playing only PS1 and below, which for many of you might not be an issue at all because all you want to do is play the true retro stuff. I play mostly PS1 and earlier, so I like it, but occasionally I want to play some PS2 and GameCube. Then you have something like the RGB30 with that screen that blows its competitors' screens out of the water, but aside from that, it's a rather limiting device and just another RK566 chipset device, which we see way too much of nowadays. Again, there's no one size fits all. If you're thinking about getting into retro handhelds for the first time, you may need to be open to buying more than one of these. I find myself switching between handhelds depending on what I'm doing that day and honestly my mood. Owning more than one handheld, in my opinion, is not a problem because I love collecting these bad boys. Another thing I learned over time is take your time setting up your device. I get it, your new retro handheld arrived and you want to start gaming on it right away. Depending on your device, the setup process can be tedious. But trust me, a properly set up device with a retro feeling customization makes a huge difference. It makes the games more enjoyable to play. Heck, booting up the device is more enjoyable. Chances are your retro handheld is going to take a while to ship over. Spend that time researching guides beforehand to figure out how you want to set yours up. Then when your handheld arrives, you'll be ready to install it instead of researching how to set it up. I should also mention that features like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth may matter to you more than you think. For example, I purchased the 351P, which doesn't have internal Wi-Fi, because I thought that Wi-Fi wouldn't matter to me. But I was very wrong, because soon after purchasing the 351P, I learned about this little thing called Retro Achievements. For those of you that don't know what Retro Achievements are, they are what they sound like, achievements for your retro games. What you do is sign up for an account at retroachievements.org, then sign in on any device that has a RetroArch or an emulator that supports Retro Achievements, and Retro Achievements will reward you for accomplishing certain things in a game. It's highly addicting. Honestly, for me, it gives me a whole new reason to replay games I grew up with. As a kid, completing your Pokedex and Pokemon Emerald is cool and all, but you can only brag about it to your friends. On Retro Achievements, however, you can get an achievement for completing your Pokedex, for catching a Feebas, or beating a Battlefront to your brain, and now the whole retro community knows about your accomplishment. It gives you a reason to accomplish the extra difficult tasks in a game. Retro achievements are awesome, but they do require Wi-Fi, and the 351P did not have internal Wi-Fi, so I had to plug this external Wi-Fi dongle, which made the device look kind of funny. I also didn't realize how much I would appreciate using Bluetooth on my handhelds. I like to play my handheld in bed sometimes. The game sounds get a little bit on my wife's nerves, so being able to connect my AirPods to the handheld is a huge plus. Anyway, there's a lot to consider when purchasing your first retro handheld. Hopefully my humble year of experience provides you some kind of value. Now that I got a little bit of YouTube experience under my belt, I want to grow this channel faster this year than I did last year. The first step to doing that is I want to make sure that I'm producing more content. My goal is 2 videos per month. I might even do 1 video per week. Now this is going to depend on how good I can still make the quality of the videos. I don't want to compromise quality. In fact, I want to be improving quality with every single video. It seems like people like my 100-hour plus review videos, and I honestly want to keep doing those. I actually enjoy it because it gives me an excuse to game more. The reason why I started doing these 100-hour review videos was because I wanted to show people like kind of what a simulation of would be to actually own the device and play it consistently. So for example, playing games to completion, putting in a bunch of hours, putting in wear and tear into the devices, it kind of gives you an idea of all the quirks of the devices, good and bad. Now, I'm not saying this is the best way to make review videos, but rather it's giving you a new angle into a review of certain devices that's not the same as what everyone else is producing. That being said, 100-hour reviews takes a while, so I'm probably not going to be able to keep doing that for every single device I review if I want to review more devices. So rather what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my 100+ hour reviews on the more mainstream devices, the more popular ones, and of course the ones I like a lot. And I'll kind of save the normal reviews for every other device. Aside from reviews on retro handhelds, I want to do more reviews on retro games, like retrospectives. I might even do some reviews on remakes like the one coming up, Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. Now, these videos are just fun to make, and honestly, this channel is more than just retro handhelds, it's about retro gaming in general. Anyway, that does it for this video. I appreciate you watching all the way through. I hope you enjoyed this kind of video, and I hope it helps you with your decision on purchasing your retro handheld for the first time, or maybe your next retro handheld. Hope you have a good one. See ya on the flippity flop. Cheers.